Yes, guys, here I am. This episode will be different because I need to discuss something with you. Something has changed in our lives, or I should say, something has been added. As you can see behind me, I have of course bought my dream motorcycle, which I am incredibly happy with. You were wondering what's coming next, right? There's nothing sad going on because the most beautiful thing that can happen is to chase your dreams. And that's what I've done again. I bought my dream motorcycle. Namely, a BMW R1200GS. This one, on the other hand, has some really nice features. A set of cases that can go on the back, similar to the metal or aluminum cases from the GS that you're familiar with. After riding 600 kilomiles with crash bars and LED headlights, I'm completely in love with this bike. After I bought this bike, I immediately made some changes to it. I've already made 2 modifications. Namely, a tall windscreen, replacing the small one it had before. My original one from BMW. Of course I took that off because I want to catch less wind on the highway. And of course I put my own twin's license plate holder on it. So those are the 2 modifications I've already made without a camera on the bike. But guys, what a beauty this is. Check this out. The R1200GS in a color combination that really stands out. Most people ride this GS in black, completely black, and that's exactly what I didn't want. I think it looks so cool in silver like this with all those shades of gray. This actually looks a bit like Nardo gray too. It's not white, it's kind of a grayish white, kind of that Porsche-like color, you know? And that's what makes it so unique. In this episode, we're also going to work on the GS because I was super excited to take the test ride with the bike. I rode for about half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour with the bike. I came back and I was totally hyped. Because this is of course my dream bike. It recently had maintenance. 1,500 kilometers ago, the spark plugs were replaced. The oils were changed, the fluids were changed, the drive shaft, etc. But one essential part was not done. That's the valves that need to be adjusted. Let me know in the comments if you're a BMW expert. And you know for sure how often you need to adjust the valves. In my opinion, that's every 60,000. And my bike has 52,000 kilometers on it. Which is actually still a young engine in my opinion, because they can easily go 200,000 if you maintain them well. In this episode, we'll also adjust the valves on a BMW engine, which I've never done before. It will be a new experience. I checked YouTube for instructions. I want to disassemble it right away since I just got to the workshop. And to adjust the valves, the engine block just needs to be cold. So I want to get the valve cover off as soon as possible. And to be able to remove the valve cover, I have to take off the engine guard. I have to take that off. I need to unscrew a few things. It feels pretty warm. I also saw on my dashboard that the engine temperature was about 83 degrees. Look guys, what a display. The car features an original BMW navigation system. So look, you can just, by clicking on this thing, you can just move to the side. Then you can set course, navigation. But you see, oh, my engine temperature is already 47 degrees. You can also see my total mileage. 42,000 or 52,000 kilometers. Yeah, I'm really incredibly hyped, man, that this thing is mine. And what I wanted to mention is, so it's not an adventure. The adventure is, of course, in a higher price range, but I didn't think it was necessarily cooler or anything. The adventure, on the other hand, does have the standard bars, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't have this cover, but it has a slightly different design. And here at the front, there's a kind of beak, a black cover. But yeah, mine doesn't have that. Mine does have its spoke wheels. Spoke wheels are an option again, but they're expensive, costing about the price of a second home for just 2 wheels. So that's quite expensive, and I also haven't made any exhaust modifications yet. But what I want to let you hear now is, maybe it sounds pretty distorted here in the workshop because of the hollow space here. I want to let you hear how it ticks. Because my neighbor, who is a motor mechanic, has a business next door that repairs engines. He came up to me and said, check your valves because they're ticking a bit. And I hadn't really noticed that myself because of course I'm not the expert in that. That's why I'll let you hear what it sounds like. I'll only run it briefly as it shouldn't fully warm up again. But I want to let you hear how it sounds at least. So yeah, it actually starts up very easily. I'm supposed to click here. You hear? I don't want to tap this side too hard. And the right side, I do want to tap. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to turn it off. I don't know how clearly you could hear that the valves are ticking a bit. On the other hand, I do know that these are shims, so it's not adjustable on the cam itself, but you have to swap out a kind of tablet to set the valve clearance. And that's actually pretty complicated, because you have to disassemble the camshaft to be able to swap those tablets. A lot of information. I'm really happy with the engine. I'm going to do the repair myself because I enjoy working on things and taking you along in the process. First, remove the engine crash bars. Next, take off the valve covers. Next, remove the spark plugs, set the timing, and measure the valve clearance. I'll guide you through the process. It's gonna be a fun vlog. What I don't think I've told you is that the engine is from 2014, so it's already 10 years old, but with 500,000 kilometers on the clock. I didn't receive the service books as the owner lost them, but they will send them to me later. And I did get photos of the maintenance that was recorded in the book. Yeah, so now it's just time to adjust the valves, I'm sure of that. Also by how it all sounds. But this is the liquid-cooled one, so to speak, the water-cooled GS with the overhead camshaft, the intake camshaft, because before this, the exhaust went down along the side, so to speak, and that was the oil-cooled one. And this one is the water-cooled one, and the exhaust also goes down, and the intake valve is on top. I also say that these are better types of engines. Whether that's really true, I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you agree. That's about all I know about engines. I didn't know they need adjusting every 60 kilometers. I still have 8,000 kilometers to go before reaching 60,000. They're making quite a bit of noise now, so it's better to be proactive, have it checked, and keep your distance. Yeah, rather than waiting until 60,000 kilometers. It looks like a really bare engine without those brackets, because I've actually never seen it without those brackets before. Now we're going to take out the ignition coils. It appears to be dismantling itself. Now we're going to remove the valve cover. One thing's for sure, the engine oil is super clean. Look at that. These are your camshafts, and underneath are your shims. So I'm curious what the valve clearance is on those. You must start at the right timing before checking valve clearance. Dropping the valve cover is definitely a mistake. I was surprised when oil came out. We'll clean it up first, then label the container. The other side still needs to be opened too. It's not very labor intensive. We'll find out later, as the camshaft needs to be removed for adjustment. And I hope that the neighbor has the tablets or the stock that I need, the shims, to adjust the valve clearance. But before we can do all that, of course we first have to measure, because maybe they're just fine. The specs may be within manufacturer specifications, but we'll only know for sure later. Since we know how it's loose, we won't make the same mistake. Lek, grab the hunger. The color of the oil is so clean, that's really not normal. It wasn't my intention to actually make a how-to on how to adjust valves on an R12 or 100GS. I'm afraid it's starting to look like that. In order to actually set the valves at the right timing, or to actually set the engine at the right timing, we need to set the camshaft in the correct position. You actually do that by putting the engine in its highest gear and then turning the wheel later, so that you can actually turn the engine. However, I did remove the spark plugs for a moment without the camera. They're out, and they looked almost as good as new. And that's correct, because the spark plugs were replaced 1,500 kilometers ago. And also the oil and filter. So actually, now we're getting to the part about setting the timing. To actually be able to set everything to the correct timing, we need to loosen this Allen bolt here. Once I have that out, you'll get a mark on the crank as well, indicating that it's properly timed. And from there, we can start measuring the dimensions. I'm sure that the adjustment needs to be made on the right, so the right side of the engine needs to be adjusted because there's quite a loud ticking sound coming from there. Much more than from the left side. But I'm going to start with the left side first. And in the meantime, we're also checking YouTube to see how all of this works, because I've never worked on this myself before. It's a good challenge to try adjusting this myself for once. That one was really stuck. It hasn't been loosened before. Wow. Now we're going to set the timing, basically by putting it in gear. There. Now it's actually in 5th or 6th gear, and now I'm going to keep turning the wheel until it gets into the right position. That cam needs to point to 2 o'clock, as I understood, so we can keep turning for a bit. It's too far, but is this the right position? No, here we go. Back underneath again. Yeah, this is it, but what is this just now? A little bit too far or something, but anyway, this is the position, perfectly timed. You can see that if those two still line up perfectly with each other, then it's timed correctly, and that's the case here. And if you look through the hole, you can see a marking on the crankshaft, and that means it's timed correctly. Alright, now we're going to measure the valve clearance using feeler gauges. Those are actually very thin metal pieces in different thicknesses. As you can see, this one says 0.04, 0.03, all different numbers. And just to make it clear for you, I made a little drawing with the engine block on the left. Cylinder head on the left, cylinder head on the right. Include the specs for the intake and exhaust. As you can see, the intake should be between 0.10 and 0.17, and the exhaust at 0.34 and 0.41. So yeah, what we're going to do now is grab a feeler gauge. In this case, 0.15, and we're going to put it in here. And if you feel some resistance, then you know it's good. And you can also try a 0.20 in between. And if the 0.20, for example, doesn't fit, then you know it doesn't fit here yet, for example. Then you know that the measurement is between 0.15 and 0.20, and then you actually know it's about 0.17, which means it's within the specs. So that's good. The first intake is good. Then we'll continue measuring. Let's see, is it 15 again? Yes, you press it in here. And that one also goes through with some resistance. So the 15 with resistance. And then I'll grab a 20 again. That's this one. And that's how you actually measure all your push rods. As you can see, the 20 doesn't fit, so that means that this one is also somewhere around 0.17, so it's good. The exhaust should be between 0.34 and 0.41, so then we'll look for the right thickness of the feeler gauge. Well, the 0.4 doesn't fit there, and not here either. Then we'll continue with the 0.35, and that's how you actually measure your valves. Yes, the values of the valves. And yes, just to give you an idea of what it looks like later. And to make it clear, I wrote it down for a moment, not just for myself, but also for you. That's how I'll measure it all. The right side valve clearance is known. Of course, I also set this one on time. The mark on the crank was in the right place again. And yes, the intake is actually within specs, so it's also at 0.15 actually. And the exhaust comes to 0.45, and as you can see, that's out of specs. It should be between 0.31 and 0.41, which means they're too loose, and that's where my ticking sound comes from. So yeah, what am I going to do now? I'm going to mark here on my camshafts how they're positioned. Because the camshafts are basically coming out, so I can get to those shims. And once those shims are out, we can measure them, and then put tighter ones back in. If all goes well, that should fix our ticking noise. We'll disassemble it to see which parts are inside. Let's go. Now that I've marked everything and placed 2 zip ties, I'm going to loosen it. The camshafts. Alright. That looks good. Now that we've actually taken the camshafts out, we can remove the shims. It's actually very simple. By flipping this up and catching it with a little magnet. And then we can check which sizes are in there. and then you can replace them. After reassembling and measuring, if it meets the specifications, it's all good. We're back. At least we are. I'm back in the workshop, and the shims I needed, the neighbor didn't have them. So I had to go to a BMW dealer for that, and I got the shims. So I'm going to put those back in, then we'll close up the whole thing again, and hopefully I'll have a lot less ticking from the right side of my engine. Although there was a mechanic at the BMW dealer who said that the valve seats, or not the valve seats, but the valve guides, can wear out a bit and cause a bit more ticking, so it could be that's the case for me too. Anyway, we're going to adjust the valves now, and at the beginning of the video I mentioned that you have to adjust the valves every 60,000 kilometers. That's not true. It's every 20,000, so 20, 40, 60, 80, and so on. And I don't see any indications that anyone has adjusted the valves before me, because I don't see any markings that I just had to make to set everything to the right timing. So I'll probably be the first one to have adjusted the valves now. Soon they'll be within the specs. And I'm really happy about that, because it also gives me peace of mind. Now get the camshaft, set the camshafts and everything to the correct timing, then screw it shut. But of course we'll double check these as well. 10 Newton meters is really nothing. Well, that was quite a bit of hard work. The engine is completely assembled. The valve covers, spark plugs, and finishing covers are installed. I topped up the engine oil on this side too. As you know, a significant amount of oil leaked out on both sides. Yeah, I added about half a liter of oil. However, the crash and engine protection bars are not yet installed. Yeah, I'm going to install those soon, but first I want to start the engine just to hear it. Is that alright? And then I'll put on the last bars, because I'm not going to do double work if something is still leaking or doesn't sound right. So we're going to start it up, I'm curious. It always sounded good during the cold start. As it warmed up, it really started ticking, so we need a bit of time. Let's take it for a spin and then complete the assembly. For now, let's start it and check if it starts as expected. It was still quite a major operation. Yeah man, it's already starting, let's go! How does it sound? Pretty good. Pretty good, sounds good. I'll put it outside briefly for a test ride. We'll hear it soon. I'm back from the ride. The motorcycle rides exceptionally well, not significantly different from before the valve adjustment. It's just a fantastic motorcycle to ride. Unfortunately, the ticking sound is still there. It has gotten a little bit less, of course, because we put in slightly tighter shims, but it's still ticking quite a bit. At the BMW dealer, they said that if it's still ticking after adjusting the valves, it could be the valve guide. So I think in my case, the valve guide is a bit worn out. But on the other hand, they do say that an engine like that can still last a long time with it. So yeah, until you actually start to feel a loss of performance or it doesn't idle smoothly anymore, then you need to take action. Otherwise, just enjoy the engine. I was told an engine can last a long time that way. So now that I know my valves are actually fine, I can enjoy the engine even more. And of course, after I assembled everything, the shims, the camshafts, and torqued everything to spec, I did a final measurement. I don't know if I recorded that on camera, but it was within specs again, which is super nice. However, I still want to let you hear it one more time, so you know what I mean. Maybe it's hard to hear in here, but maybe you'll get what I mean. I don't know how well the camera picks this up, but yeah, I'm really happy that I was able to rule this out today, and that I know I've done major maintenance with all the fluids, spark plugs, etc., and also adjusted the valves, so now I can go ride my motorcycle with peace of mind. Then I can honestly say that I can really start enjoying the motorcycle. Is there anything else I want to tell you guys? Go after your dreams, even if they're just little things like this that make life enjoyable. Go for it if you have the opportunity. Yes, for me, this was really a dream too. After riding the T-Max, I knew I really wanted a GS, so I made it happen. Now I get to ride it daily for my commute, which motivates me a bit more each day. How fantastic is that? Just to go all out, go all out, go all out, and just have discipline, to just go to work every time. Go work out and so on. On that positive note, I want to end this vlog. The fall training is done as well. He's ready to enjoy it. See you in a new vlog soon. Ciao.